Sink divers. This time we're going to be talking about private prisons, but we put another spin on it. What if private prisons were only there for public officials? Check out some of the clips, and then you can head over to patreon.com/ksmvidcast to see the whole episode.
Visualizing season 6 of Kitchen Sink Microscopy.
This also begs the question, are they trying to fill a quota? Are they trying to keep a certain amount of people in prison just for the cash flow? The point should be to have as few as possible.
I would actually, yes, if that were the model where you got paid more for having fewer people in prison because you rehabilitated them and they've come out better and they're upstanding citizens and good people now. Yeah, you get paid more. That'd be awesome. Maybe this is mythological or something, but I've heard it said that in China, doctors only get paid when you get better.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I don't know if that's true, but it should be. That is what it kind of correlates to what we're talking about here. Like, hey, you only get paid for a graduation out of the prison. Those are the things that you get money for. There could be enough money to cover all of the time and resources you put into that. So it's a big ass paycheck when somebody graduates, but there would need to be standards on what constitutes that, public scrutiny of things. So people don't fudge the numbers and bullshit their way through, because they're going to find a way, whether it be public or private. And like you're saying, the quotas, I'm 100% sure that is extremely common in both types of systems.
There's also the public perception of criminals. People that are in prison are all dangerous, like equally dangerous, and letting them out is like, oh my God, now the world is a more terrible place.
Well, yeah, because you're a felon.
A lot of these people were just like in a bad situation at the wrong time.
Or they were going through something in their life and they made poor decisions.
Yeah,
that could be the case too.
More often than not, I would say, if you just opened up the prisons and let everybody go, the actual amount of, the actual rise in crime probably wouldn't be that bad. Well, I mean, if the system were in a better state to where they don't come out completely homeless and moneyless and unable to get a job, except for President of the United States, but that only comes up every 4 years.
The issue, I think, and maybe the barrier to accomplishing that is partisanism, and that it's like this. And of course, the system is very crafty, and they've been putting this together for a very long time to divide people so that you and I don't want to work together because I've been told you're an asshole and you've been told I'm an idiot, and we're dehumanizing people. We need to get around that. We need to overcome that and realize that, hey, we can all agree something isn't right here. This is not a beneficial system. It's harmful, and we need to correct it. And the only way we're going to do that is if we can look past our differences and work together. There's a fire there. I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat. We got to go put that fire out, right?
Yeah.
Who gives a shit at that point? The fire isn't like, man, well, I'm a blue fire or I'm a red fire.
I feel like even though a lot of people felt more togetherness and solidarity after 9/11, I feel like it has never been more divided. Ever since that moment, it's just been tearing apart the country. And that's just wrong. Like, we have to reverse that. By their demeanor, you could tell that they were walking on eggshells, like they knew everybody thought they were the scum of the earth. And that was kind of sad.
Yeah, it is. Well, especially because of the fact that you could be a felon for some of the stupidest things. I think somebody said once that it would be pretty trivial to basically get every single person in the country, the US, on at least 3 felonies.
9 out of 10 felonies are just crimes against the government.
So. Yeah, exactly. They're nonviolent. It's like a bureaucratic sort of thing. Yeah. And in fact, a lot of people who are in prison are there for much of those things. But yet they're put into the public perception. They're perceived as being in the same category. Say you didn't cross your T's and dot your I's the right way when you're doing some kind of piece of paperwork. That's a felony. Or you murder somebody. that's a felony, right? Now that you're a felon and you're in prison, people don't differentiate. It's like, oh, you're just a felon. Same thing with a sex offender, right? That's one that has to change, because you can get on that list and go to jail for some of the most ridiculous things, like public urination or something. Well, oh, there was a kid standing there when you had your wang out, and oopsie, off to prison. And now you're a sex offender. You got to get on the registry. And oh, well, you can't live in the house that you lived in now because there's a school that's too close. You can't own a firearm or whatever. And then people will view you as no different than somebody who does something super heinous because you're on that list. And that's wrong. Is your life all about politics? Is your only concern about humanity and civilization and culture just a political angle, or is it humanitarian? Because if it's humanitarian, you can just throw away all the politics and focus on people. That's what we ought to be doing. And that's what I do. I mean, I'm an anarchist, a huge humanitarian. It's all about, I don't give a shit what the government does or what it wants or what the laws are. And it's like, all I care about is helping people and making this a better place.
Well, it's similar to religion. Atheism is basically being like, yeah, there's some good stuff in religion, but there's also bad stuff. I just want to focus on the good stuff.
Yeah.
And not pay any attention to, doing what this angry, petty God wants me to do.
Yeah. And it kind of liberates you from the shackles of that system to actually be altruistic. You're not doing it because your doctrine says that's what you're supposed to do. You're doing it because you want to do it. And it's the right thing. Because I'm sure you've heard it before many times that, oh, atheists, the amoral people and blah, 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 and that something. There's so many arguments about that. But it's like, okay, well, wait. If the only reason you're not doing something bad and you're doing good things is because of your religion, well, that doesn't make you a good person. It makes you a sheep. It makes you a follower. And the same thing with politics. If the only reason you're doing stuff is because politics, you're not a good person. You're an awful person. Yeah. And I think we need to see beyond that.
If there is a prison, private prisons are not really the right direction to go, I think.
Because there's an incentive, a commercial incentive.
Yeah.
At that point, even if it's a government-based public prison, if that makes any sense. Now that I'm thinking about it, that sounds really weird. Publicly owned prison, I guess. This is a national park. You can just go visit, right?
Right.
It does present a conflict of interest, I think. There's other problems, not just simply the prison being private, but that how politics works, of course, that people make money off of that stuff. Obviously, the prison itself is going to make money off of the inmates that are there. The more inmates, the more money they're going to make. And there's an incentive for the government to put people in those prisons because, well, they end up making money in a way, or they could, having to do with revenue and use it or lose it kind of stuff. There's so many problems with that concept.
Well, who does pay for the private prisons?
The taxpayers.
But the taxpayers also pay for public prisons.
Yes.
So
yes.
How is it even allowed to have private prisons, which basically, I'm just spitballing here, just opens the door for politicians to buy stock in the private prisons.
You hit the nail
into the private prisons.
There you go.
So they get rich.
I would say maybe the whole system ought to be kind of like going to school where you graduate. There's a goal in mind that you like, because obviously we want people to be productive members of society. That's helps everybody. And so somebody who's like a gangbanger who's just running around dealing drugs, whatnot, shooting people, that doesn't benefit society. That's harmful. Someone who's leads a life of theft, just stealing all the time, burglary, that doesn't benefit society. We want them to be productive. So maybe if you are caught doing something like that, then especially if there's a pattern, right? Like, okay, I don't know about if you if you have no criminal record whatsoever and you get caught stealing something from a store. Okay, that's not a pattern. That's a one-off. And maybe that could be considered like, oh, hey, sorry, judge, I don't know what came over me. And that then you shouldn't necessarily be incarcerated for that. There's a process where somebody comes in and you're guided towards coming out the other end a better person, just like going to school. Well, just like it's supposed to be. It doesn't always end up that way, but that's what I would love to see that. And in that regard, if prisons were like that, like school, private prisons would be perfect. Why not? It'd be like a trade school or something.
That's what we should do.
Mm-hmm.
The state of the country is getting dangerously close to that whole French Revolution climate, you know?
Yes, it is.
Rather than pull out the guillotines and dust them off, maybe creating private prisons that hold public officials and public company executives that are lobbying, maybe that would fix some things, you know?
Well, it would certainly, yeah, it would be a step in the right direction, I think.
Relatively bloodless, you know? Of
And
course, you have the right to a militia, so of course that you have to have your militias to protect you against the police that are government controlled, who are going
Yeah.
to, of course, try to stop you from enforcing the law because of their law. In a way, this would be kind of like a political cold civil war. Basically,
We just want a society that is smooth functioning and safe and where you can just live your life in peace. I think everybody wants that. Things are kind of getting close to revolutionary levels where we're getting to that point. People, at least people in the US, are generally pretty calm for the most part, not necessarily inclined to do that, but it could happen.
it doesn't take much when you get backed into a corner to push you over an edge, you know, like Luigi Mangione and the United Healthcare guy. I completely understand how that happened. I've been in a similar situation as far as the health insurance issues go. Needs to be rectified, and it never will be if we don't do it. And that
Well,
was like an extreme way of doing it.
yeah.
But when you're backed in a corner, that's the only way you see out. Creating a system that falls under the jurisdiction of a check and balance would actually be something that would keep the government in line. It would put them back in a place of being just public servants, just work part-time, do what you need to do to keep the country infrastructure running smoothly, and that's it. You know, you don't get to become rich, you don't get to die in office. Like, you just come do a little bit of time and then go back to your life.
I think if you're going to have any kind of politicians, any kind of public officials, that like anybody that you would elect, it should be a lottery or something akin to jury duty, where there's just a machine that randomly says, guess what? Hey, you're a senator now.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that. That makes the most sense, because now people are not there because they're not attracted to that position. They're basically conscripted into that position. So you're going to get all walks of life. Anybody from anywhere. It could be a homeless person. It could be a one percenter. You never know. Everybody. That would be good. In fact, if you think about it, it makes sense, because they're supposed to represent us, right? That's the whole point of having a representative system of governance, is that you want people to represent you. So who better to represent you than some random neighbor or somebody? That makes more sense than somebody who spends millions and millions of dollars campaigning to get that position. Why spend that kind of money? It's not because they're altruistic. I want to make the world a better place. Fuck that. Liar. You're lying.
I would say do that on the local level for sure, but with some of the bigger, more important stuff, it kind of makes sense to have an election and have people that might have qualifications for that position.
Okay, you're right. And in that, I think there should be a qualification test. It can't just be any asshole off the street. Oh yeah, I'm running for the Senate or whatever, or Congress or something. You should have to pass a test, some kind of test crafted by the public, or if you hold any kind of position, right? If you're going to be a head of one of the alphabet agencies. Okay, well, you can't just be anybody. You need to have some qualifications.
Sowing the seeds of the kitchen sink.